Well, I am joined from New Jersey by Michael Tracey, who has been on this show many times, um, who's just a terrible person. And I'm having him on to explain why he's chosen to be such a terrible person who defends the worst people and the worst actions imaginable. Michael Tracey has in the last, what is it, 6 weeks? That's just 6 weeks, right? You've been doing this thing
Well,
on Jeffrey Epstein?
okay, so I had intermittently followed
Sure. As we all have.
Epstein related developments since early 2015, if we want to go back to the beginning of my
Well,
awareness of
we
it.
all have, but you didn't do
Right.
that.
But
You didn't do the
I've
real
been doing
research.
the absurd, maniacal deep dive since what was 4th of July weekend. So we're probably around 5 weeks.
So my guess is between 2015 and 6 weeks ago, you had more or less the same attitude about the Jeffrey Epstein case as I did, which is like we didn't really look into it seriously, but what we heard made me quite skeptical. And I'll just say this up front, and I think this should be, I think this is the first way to frame the question or the case about Epstein. How people should look at the case is the context should be the history of so-called sex trafficking allegations, right?
Well,
Now, if you
child sex trafficking
and then
in particular.
especially, and then I would say,
That's a particularly resonant
and then I would say,
variation on the theme.
and then especially child sex trafficking. So if you look at the history of those allegations in this country, in the United States, I'm not talking about Thailand or India. Those are different categories. And I think it's much more real in those places. But in this country, when you look, just, and I invite everyone watching this, just Google it, go look at any list of cases, sex trafficking allegations and sex trafficking allegations in the United States in particular in the last, oh God, 30 years, you will find no real cases. I mean, I have not. Elizabeth Nolan Brown and I have gone over this, and she writes for this about Reason, and I have not been able to find a real case of actual sex trafficking in this country in the last several decades, where people have actually been coerced or defrauded, that's the definition of sex trafficking, into selling sex. And so
That's not
that,
really the definition of trafficking anymore. It's gotten so expansive that it
oh, sure.
encompasses a huge multitude of potential
Well,
circumstances,
the
at least in the
law,
popular nomenclature.
there is a law though, I think there is a law, which was actually established by Hillary
There
Clinton's.
is, but
Go
there is a law, but my recollection is, and I looked at the statute recently. I can't quote it chapter and verse or verbatim at the moment, but I believe there have been amendments to the law to define as trafficking any sexual transport or transmittal of a minor for sexual activity, regardless if there's obvious coercion or proven coercion. So it's if it occurs to a minor at all, it can be considered trafficking
Okay, sure. Yeah. Um,
by the federal statute. I think I'd have to go double check the
so
exact
the
language.
words are in the statute: force, fraud, and coercion.
Here, I got it.
So if you use force, fraud, or coercion to
But I'm
com
saying it's been amended recently.
to compel, okay, to compel someone to sell sex, that's sex trafficking, which I'm okay with that definition. If you're saying it's been expanded recently, that was as of just a couple of years ago. I don't know, but that's a fine definition to me. I mean, force, fraud, and coercion, if you're yeah, if that happens to you and you're
Okay,
compelled.
so there's the force, fraud, and coercion element, but then they've added an additional subsection to the definition now, which
Oh,
is by any combination of, or if the person recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, or obtained had not attained the age of 14 years at the time of such offense, or oh, no, sorry, let me. If the offense was not so affected, meaning by force, fraud, or coercion, and the person recruited, enticed, harbored, transported, provided, or obtained had attained the age of 14 years but had not attained the age of 18 years at such time of the offense. So they're excluding the necessity of the force, fraud, or coercion now if the person had not attained the age of 18 years at the time of the offense.
Right. So if you talk a 14-year-old into having sex, that would be,
Or a 17-year-old.
or a 17-year-old, right, right. Which is, well, no, depending on the state.
Well, no, that's a federal. I just read you the federal statute.
Oh, gotcha. So one thing, I'm not even sure you know this, but a lot of people just don't know this, that in every southern state, in most red states, in most Republican states, the age of consent is 16. So
Well, not in
Alabama,
Florida.
not in Florida, but that's a purple state. But Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, and then up through the western mountain Republican states, Idaho, it's all 16, and then other states are 17. Most
New
states,
York is 17, which was actually a complicating factor in terms of the attempt to re-prosecute Epstein
yeah,
federally in 2019
yeah,
because
liberal, yeah, liberal state, liberal democratic
and
states,
it's 17 in the United Kingdom as well, which is where some alleged offenses were
which
said
is
to have occurred.
relatively high, is my point. In Europe, the standard is 14, 15, 16. But anyway,
No, I've never been an age of consent guy. Like, if you even mention that issue, people assume that you need to have your hard drive checked or that there's something suspicious as to why you're raising it. But
yes or
yes, I
no?
mean, it is relevant in terms of
Well, of course it's relevant.
prosecutors trying to marshal a case in which they claim that there was underage sex activity going on, and then that gets extrapolated by the public to indicate quote unquote pedophilia.
Right. And so we can say, and it's fine to say that it's like uncool or gross or immoral, even for a 50-something-year-old guy to be having sex with a 16-year-old. I'm fine with that. I find it pathetic and weird and gross and probably the sign of a emotionally immature man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But it's legal. It's legal in most states and it's legal in most countries, and therefore we cannot simply consider it to be something that should be scandalous. Right? I mean, until we change the laws.
Well, you could consider it like morally scandalous, I guess, potentially,
Well,
but in
but
terms of legality, you
uh,
need to separate out that component,
sure.
which nobody really seems interested in doing.
Okay, so here's the nub of your argument. Not the nub, I think the thrust of it, which is that the claims, so there are many claims about Epstein, right? And I'd say there's two sets of claims, and I want to separate those two sets. So one set is about there having been a pedophile sex trafficking ring, which was also okay. And then there's the second claim, which is connected, which is that that sex trafficking pedophile ring was in the service of a blackmail operation run by some probably Israeli intelligence agency, most
See,
likely
I
the
don't think
Mossad.
those claims are separable or not
Okay,
as easily separable as you're trying to
well, I'm
posit.
going to do that.
Because,
We're
like,
gonna,
in the initial motion for joinder that Virginia Gouffre initially filed,
yeah,
or that rather Bradley Edwards and Paul Cassell filed on her behalf on
yeah.
December 30th, 2014, she alleged that the whole purpose, or she
Oh,
alleged that this underage or child sex trafficking operation was done in furtherance of obtaining blackmail material on the prominent individuals who were entrapped by it.
well,
So it was introduced as non-separable allegations.
so I would wonder then whether Virginia Juf is it, I think it's Giuffre, by the way. But
Whatever it
it
is.
doesn't matter. I would imagine I would wonder whether Virginia Giuffre had had any contact with Ryan Dawson or Whitney Webb at that point. Because where else would she get that idea that this was a Mossad operation? She was not.
She didn't allege Mossad specifically. She didn't allege in that motion for joinder that the blackmail was carried out at the behest of or direction of any particular intelligence agency, just that there was a blackmail operation.
Okay. So, but
I don't know who, I don't know if she was in contact with any of those people at that
so let
point.
me,
I
okay.
tend to doubt it, but I don't know.
So let me, again, I want to separate these things just for the moment because I have, this is my intervention with you on this. And I've read all your stuff. You've written 3 or 4 articles on Substack about this and been on several podcasts. And
More than that at this point.
okay. Um, I've read a lot, heard a lot. Um, So I think there are I think they're distinct. How about distinct claims made, or different claims about this?
I don't really accept that they're distinct claims or that they're easily distinguishable claims. They seem to form the same ultimate claim.
Well, let me just tell you what I think.
Okay.
Okay. Which is that,
I mean, people can claim whatever they want, but in terms of like the genesis
sure,
of the theory, they are interwoven claims.
sure. Okay. Here's what I think. As to the claims about a pedophile sex trafficking ring operated by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, I think you have driven a truck right through it. I think that has been blown to smithereens, and there is no coming back from it unless there's some new evidence that's going to be revealed. It's just
And I'd love to see any evidence that's available.
it's
Let's see
it's an
it. I'm not. I'm
annihilation.
I'm I'm pro
It's
disclosure, so let's just get
it's an
that covered.
annihilation. I mean, to me, there's just zero. You've completely demolished that entire fantasy, which is really mostly what it was.